seen primetime television for,
Really?
I don't
You
know,
have a
for
D-
10 years.
need
I
a-
don't think I've seen it.
You need a DVR when you can't fall asleep at night. You can just turn
That
on
would
your
mean
phone.
that I'd have to like upgrade from my VCR.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Now the DVRs fill up, that's, the hard drive gets too full,
well, mine automatically deletes the
Yeah,
oldest.
that could be
you
trouble.
can have a setting where it can automatically delete the
Well, it
oldest.
will, or it won't work. I got in trouble making deletions of what I wasn't interested in. But others work.
Yeah.
There were other
so.
people in the household who
Rightly so.
Didn't get the
didn't
vote,
agree with that.
didn't get the vote on something. Oh, these are deadly. Don't even start on that.
My son goes, Mom, do you need every edition of Dr. Oz? I said, yes, because I never know what he's talking about. Have you ever watched it? It is great.
Never
Dr.
watched it.
Oz.
He was at the Boulder
is
Boulder, I
great.
know that, he was at the Boulder Boulder Star.
He's great.
I can make,
This, I just started with 2 weeks ago. When a girlfriend called me twice a year to me and asked me if I had seen it. And then my husband actually watched it on satellite TV or something weird. And he goes, it is great.
Counting. I saw it late. Yeah, Thanksgiving break. Where is everybody? It's pretty quiet right now. Start on time, I guess. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a Town of Superior Board of Trustees meeting for November 22nd, 2010. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Muckle,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Uli Gregoris, Trustees Joe Sorelli,
Here.
Chris Hansen, Sandy Pennington,
Here.
Lisa Skumans. Here. Deborah Williams, Interim Town Manager Matt Magrick,
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry. Oh, she's here. Counselor Phil Sargent here.
Thanks. That brings us to item number 3, approval agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Is there none?
Is this where we
Pennington.
pull stuff?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Want to pull B, 7B and 7C.
Okay. Any other changes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those changes by Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee Pennington. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Brings us to reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Sorelli?
The only thing I'm going to report on is a week ago, I think it was a week ago Monday, the 12th, no, it was on the 12th of November, so it was after our last meeting, at the 12th of November. It should be a Friday, I think. We met with the representatives from Louisville of our interchange group to have the next meeting to begin discussing next steps on approving the McCaslin 36 interchange. We have had really not much movement in that in the past year or so, pending the completion decision document on the environmental impact statement for Route 30 for Highway 36. So, Representative Trustee Gregoris, myself, Matt, Alex, our transportation, Jay Wolfarth, and Kurt. Can't remember everybody's last names. But
Public Works.
yeah, Public Works all attended with Mayor Sisk from Louisville and Councilman Matt Dalton and other representatives of Louisville government. to discuss the next steps. And basically, we just pointed out in accordance with the interagency agreement, that intergovernmental agreement, that the next step called for is for a design to go forth on a either a northeast loop, or if not, if one isn't called out by the final decision on the environmental impact statement from Highway 36, which was the case, then an alternative design that meets the level of service of the Northeast Loop. And after a lot of discussion and our demonstration of what we thought the Northeast Loop could look like, it was agreed that they would start looking at a design, but also there was a lot of discussion about going back to a consideration of what is really a required level of service, and what are we seeking to achieve by doing the redesign. And so they're going to look at that and come forth to us with some proposals in, say, mid-January. We targeted January 15th as a target date, but really that was without exploring the availability of everybody on that particular date. But it's in that time frame. So that'll be the next step, is to meet at that time frame to get some idea of how we're going to move forward, and how quickly, and whether there's some proposed new directions, because they could have some other new ideas, and we'd be interested in hearing them if they do have new ideas that will get us what we want. So that's.
Well, thank you very much for doing that. A long, painful process, and
did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, the level of service that Trustee Sorelli mentioned was, I think that discussion came out of our emphasis that we wanted to make sure the level of service was the same level as what we were going to achieve with the Northeast Loop. So I think they understood that, at least my takeaway from it.
We'll find out how much they understand.
Yeah. So.
Well, great. Thanks very much for doing that. Trustees, come on.
I've been on vacation since the last meeting, so I haven't gone to any meetings.
Excellent.
Tell us about your vacation.
Yeah.
I didn't attend any meetings, except I see the Cub Scouts here tonight, and I got the opportunity to attend, I think it's a PAC meeting over at the American Legion. It was excellent. There's some really fine gentlemen there, and so that was really a great opportunity for me, so I thank them for the invitation. That's all I had. Trustee Pennington.
I did go to several things. Trustee Williams and I attended the Dr. Cog Baby Boomer Housing Symposium done in conjunction with the Denver Board of Realtors. It's part of the aging investigation, how that'll change housing needs. We came away with a lot of great ideas, I think, for town center, as well as perhaps Remington, if it keeps the empty nester concept. So that's one of them. OSAC meeting on November 10th, and that's always a good meeting. And then I went to the PAC 278 meeting as well, and I was a den mother for 3 years, and this was over the top as far as I'm concerned. They had a live video feed with a soldier in Iraq from the community named Eric Williams. He has 4 young sons. That was very impressive to see that at a PAC meeting we actually have live telecommunications with Iraq. So, the theme was citizenship. Is that why you young men are here today? Okay, cool. We all got notification of the US 36 commuter congestion survey, and I'm sure you'll probably address this, but I too would like as many people in the community to fill that out as possible, and thank you for sending that over the e-blast. I wanted to address something that I thought we left a little bit unsaid at the end of the Clearwire Tower discussion last week. A resident brought up the idea of a repeater that would perhaps guarantee coverage into original town, and
Yes, he did mention that they could possibly do that. We contacted them to see if they're interested. However, I don't believe that will reach original town.
It won't.
I don't think so. But it
Well,
could extend the distance a little bit further
Right.
than what.
Well,
The current
just
tower will.
if we can
Yeah.
encourage, as far as, technology allows that to extend, that's great. And then I would like to reiterate what one of our residents said over the CAC today, that I think the twinkling snowflakes addition in the holiday decorations are really great. So whoever did that, that's terrific. And I wanted to report from PAC 278 that it's very impressive. We have in that PAC descendants of Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, and an original signer of the Constitution. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Very good. Thanks.
Aren't they a little old for?
Descendants.
A couple generations maybe skipped. Mr. Magley?
I have, let's see, on the weekly digest, have an update on the water line repairs in Second Avenue. Those were scheduled for this week, but in our investigation, when we had to shut those lines down to do the repairs, it looks like it might affect the marketplace as well and Sagamore. So we're going to delay those until next week and do them probably at night. But we'll notify the businesses and residents of that.
Yes, let's not shut down the marketplace
No,
on Black
yes.
Friday.
That was my thought as well. Let's see. I think that was it for, unless
Okay.
there's any questions.
There's a question, actually,
Trustees
I was
comments?
following up on what Trustee Sorelli said, and a meeting that you also attended. So I'm just going to ask straight out. So going back to square one with Louisville, is that on the design and the rationale, is that kind of a stalling technique or what? Are you taking it that way or not?
No.
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 No, not necessarily. I think it may be looking for new ideas to achieve. That's what, on face value, I take it as looking at new ideas to achieve what we desire without necessarily doing a northeast loop. And I'm curious about what they could come
Right,
up with.
yeah, and I think it was clear from us that we don't want to wait 20 years to see some type of improvements.
Right.
And that's kind of where we began the discussions. So.
Thanks.
Great. Ms. Carberry?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Ms. Harden, anything from you? All right, that brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
Gladys 444 South 3rd Avenue. I just wanted to say that it has been very nice to work with staff to get the information that I requested. I didn't get the September 27th minutes. I got them. I was requested a copy of the land use revisions, and I got those. And there was a time in this town that would have never happened, so I'm grateful to staff for doing that. I have two other issues. One is the fact that I would very much like to see the town work with businesses. And what I'm talking about is the fact that the average business person, average John Q. public does not realize that within the health care reform package, they stuck a lot of other things in there. The Federal Congress did. One of those things that they stuck in there is that any business person that files withholding taxes, they have been doing that hard copy. Within this health care reform, there is the new law that takes effect of January 1st, that businesses are going to have to file their withholding tax electronically. Now, once they find this out, January 1st, they're not going to be able to have enough time to get that all done, because there are millions of businesses that don't know this, and there's going to be a backlog. And if their withholding taxes aren't filed electronically by January 31st, they're going to be slapped with a penalty. And those penalties are going to be huge. So what I'm asking the town of Superior to do is to contact the businesses within our town and tell those businesses of this new withholding law, and help them get their electronic setup done in December, before December 31st. We should be able to do that. There shouldn't be any reason why staff couldn't do it. Paul would have that information, the chamber would have that information, because these penalties are going to hurt small businesses, and they're going to hurt them bad. And I think that anything that the town of Superior can do to help these businesses get prepared so that they don't have that big penalty, the town of Superior needs to do. So I am hoping that somebody will pick that up and do it instantaneously. Another one of the things that I requested was the town of Superior debt regarding the budget. And like I say, I'm very grateful that I was given that information after the last meeting when I requested it. I am irate, I'm disappointed, I'm a number of things. I don't think the average John and Jane Q. public in this town realizes that the town of Superior is $63,907,789 in debt. I'm very disappointed that the town board did not look at that issue when they were discussing the budget, because this information that I was given also shows that there's $3,433,207 payment due in 2011. I am extremely, extremely disappointed, especially with you, Mr. Mayor, that you have let our town get in debt that long. You have been on the town board and mayor for many years, and I don't think the average John Jane Q. public realized the debt that we are in, and I think something needs to be done about it. I'm very disappointed.
Fortunately, the town doesn't have any debt, as far as I'm aware. The town itself, Metropolitan District number 1, holds a whole bunch of debt, and the Metropolitan Districts numbers 2 and 3 hold a whole bunch of debt, and there's more debt coming for the water firming project. But I'm not actually the McCaslin Interchange District holds a bunch of debt as well. But Mr. Magley can correct me, but I don't think the town itself has any debt at all.
This says Town of Superior outstanding debt as of 12/31/10.
If you put all those districts together.
I'm talking about, and those districts are within the Town of Superior. So
There are-
therefore, it is in the Town of Superior that this debt exists.
That's true, and that's when the original town approved the Rock Creek Branch subdivision, Metropolitan Districts number 2 and 3, that's when that debt occurred, or vast majority.
And we have a considerable amount of revenue, or money invested as well, close to $40 million. And very few municipalities in the state don't have some form of debt in one way or another.
Yep. I'm very comfortable with our finances, as everybody's recently experienced it, holding 75% of annual revenue in the bank is, I think, a very good policy. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at, but thank you. Additional public comment? Okay. Seeing none, that brings us to item number 6, presentations. And tonight we have a Starburst Award from GOCO. Mr. Magley?
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce Matt Robbins from the Colorado Lottery, who's going to make a presentation for the town.
Thank you very much.
Great. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And yes, for the record, Matt Robbins, Community Relations Specialist with the Colorado Lottery. And I just wanted to thank you up front for the opportunity to take just a moment out of your busy schedules to do a little celebrating, actually, if that's okay. I have the distinct pleasure at the lottery to, as a community relations specialist, to travel throughout the state and see some of the benefits that the lottery it brings to the state. And we're going to talk about one of those that have happened here in town. Without question, though, over the last 27 years, the one thing that the lottery is most proud of is the return to the state of over $2.2 billion. And for those, you are all probably intimately aware, but for perhaps those in the audience or those at home, the proceeds from the Colorado Lottery go to Parks and Recreation and the protection of open space. And I'm very proud to say that that return we consider significant, and I have the opportunity and the fortune of traveling around the state and seeing that. Now, I did just write down, at the local level, that means over $1 million alone, just in the town of Superior. And I just asked Martin, I said, I forget exactly this metropolis. How big is this? And he goes, well, it's about 4 square miles or something to that effect. And I said, well, that's saying something. And so I just wanted to highlight that. We, of course, could not do that without our partners. We have a couple of 3 tremendous partners that help us distribute the funds. We're charged with raising the funds, and then State Parks helps us, collecting 10%, 40% going through the Department of Local Affairs that administer what is called the Conservation Trust Fund. And then the remaining 50% is with our partners, Great Outdoors Colorado, who would then issue grants throughout the state. And we couldn't do it without them, so we wanted to thank them. And as mentioned already, the reason that I'm here this evening is the Starburst Awards. The Starburst Award is an award that we first started the lottery in 1992. It's to recognize excellence in the use of lottery funds. Without question, this evening is a great example of that. I had the pleasure of making these formal announcements at the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association annual conference. But the project that I'm actually referring to is Asti Park, Ted T. Asti Park. I think that it goes without saying you utilized some significant lottery funds in the way of those CTF dollars to not only make some improvements, but also use that and leverage that to get additional dollars. I believe that utilize some of those funds to actually get some state historic funds accessible, make those accessible and added to the project so that it really minimized the actual cost, true dollar cost to the community. So it was this transition that happened, I think, from 2006 to 08, the transition of this park from what it once was, and probably most in town remember it, to what it is now, and all the amenities that included the historical value that is now put in place there, the opportunity for all of us, young and old, to come and appreciate that and understand the heritage of the region and what was going on. The pathways, the garden areas, those places that allow opportunity for those who can go there and visit and just have a very passive time and a recreation time and get out. Perhaps not this evening with the weather the way it is, but unless you're bundled up, I wouldn't recommend dress shoes, but that's me. It's that project, and and the one thing that I believe that really resonated with our judges, which was our commissioners at the lottery, was the community power that went behind this project. It's the partnerships that happened. It's important too that we at the lottery don't assume any one project is fully funded by the lottery. In fact, it does take leveraging in other dollars and other supports and other mechanisms, including in kind. The one number that really jumped off the page was the over 3,000 hours of volunteer hours that had come out. For the staff that submitted the application, there were some photos of the finished project, but numerous photos of all the manpower, all the kid power, and the women power, and everyone that came out. There were dogs out there. I don't know. You were laying sod and planting and moving, and it was really tremendous. And I think that really a picture does tell 1,000 words, and it really resonated with our judges. So without question, that was it. I've had the distinct pleasure of doing a little work up here as well and helping with the Mobile Classic last year and being around and being in the community for a couple of days and enjoying that park as well, and and the turf field that also I believe has benefited from some lottery funds, and really seeing the community come together. And I travel throughout the state, but it's fun to come to one this size that has really a can-do attitude. It's refreshing, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity. So with that, I have a couple of things, if I may, present to the trustees and to your honor. First is a poster that I had made that we actually put up on display at the CPRA conference after we made the official announcements, and left them up for the week so those who were in attendance could actually understand and the volume of the different types of projects, but intimately start to understand. So I have a quick little poster that I'd like to present, and that poster reads 2010 Starburst Award for Excellence in Use of Lottery Funds to the Town of Superior for the Ted T. Asti Park. a true historical community project. I believe that there's a camera that, for those at home that may want to see that, and for the audience, perhaps, see that poster. And you probably all know exactly all the whole story behind that house and behind those gardens and those trails. And I wouldn't be surprised with the young men that we have in the back of the room that they weren't out there as well. So that's the first piece that I had for you. And then the other that I'd like to present, and I don't know whether we can get some assistance. I don't know, Mark, if you want to come up, or I have an award. As it happens, an award that's it's a solid piece of marble, cold. Again, I'm sorry for keep harping on that, but I've got a little chill. But it reads the Colorado Lottery Starburst Award of the Town of Superior for excellence use of lottery funds for the Ted Tiasi Park, a True Historic Community Project, 2010. But it comes accompanied with another piece, and actually, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is a solid piece of glass. Now, mind you, whoever takes this after me, it is not connected in any way, shape, or form. But in fact, that's what the award looks like. And it is yours, and we could not thank you enough from the Colorado Lottery for your efforts and what you do on a day-to-day basis for your constituents and for the families and people who live here in town. So I have these for you at this time. That pretty much concludes my portion of the
Opportunity to have a photo of it.
Well, I would welcome that. Do you want to hold the award?
Sure.
Oh,
Well, but then maybe I'll drop it.
Fine. It's
There we go.
maybe two hands there. We'll do it that way. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much.
Let's see, I will.
Give this. Oh, well played. And I don't want to leave this here in the event that it might launch or something.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you all for your time this evening as well.
All right. Well, that was very nice. Let's see. This brings us to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the November 8th, 2010 Board of Trustees meeting, adoption of a resolution approving an appointment to the Open Space Advisory Committee, and adoption of a resolution approving an appointment to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee. I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee Cirelli. Further discussion. All in favor?
My discussion was, I have to abstain from this.
Sure. Very good. And that brings us to what was 7B, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with CoCal Landscape Services, Inc. for landscape and snowplow services. Trustee Pennington.
Yes, the reason for pulling this is, actually, this is my first exposure to this aspect of the landscape fee. And in the context, landscape costs, we discussed during the budget process landscape fees and, possibly some things we're considering there. And one of the things we mentioned front and center was trying to reduce landscape costs. I'm very complimentary, actually, of the work I see CoCal do, but I'd like to just ask staff or anybody in attendance from CoCal, what is the process of trying to make sure that our costs are kept as low as we possibly can for the result that we find acceptable?
For the upcoming year?
They've had the contract now for, what did you say, 7 years?
Actually, longer. Because they had the contract when the districts 2 and 3 were in place
Okay.
also.
So,
And, our primary process for making sure that our pricing is market pricing for the services is through the RFP process. And we did one of those in 2007, and we'll do another one here coming up for our schedule in 2011. And then just the management of the contract throughout the year, in addition to that,
Right.
through our superintendent of parks and open space and our field staff that are out there at the time overseeing the work that they do
right.
and making sure it adheres to the contract that we've agreed.
Right. this item incorporates another $27,000 of expenses, some of which are new.
Right. Actually,
3 parks, those
3
expenditures
parks.
are new.
right, and we have the new Colton roundabout and medians associated with that.
Right.
The new trail
Right.
that's going to connect to the Boulder County Trail on the west side of town behind Key or Superior Point. And then aeration of Community Park and some additional mowing and aeration of Town Night Park.
So my question was the additional $8,000 for Town 9. What are we seeing done there that's in addition to what's already been done there? Or what typically is done there?
Well, I think this is, and Martin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is associated with the property that we just seeded on the east side there, that, we've had some, it doesn't compare to what's on the west side of Town 9 there, so we're trying to bring that up to the quality that we expect, I think, to see at our parks.
Right. I'll get just sort of get to the cut to the chase here. Between this and what will come before us in April, in terms of the annuals planting contract, the color
Right.
portion, I certainly would like to see us do everything we possibly can, and we may already be doing it, but definitely for that to continue to be a theme, to keep landscape costs as affordable as possible. Some things that have been brought to our attention since I've been on the board is overwatering. And I don't think this even includes the water cost, but in terms of some of the green space that actually is marshy and soggy, those sorts of things. And then an issue that seems to come up quite a bit is the number of bushes, shrubs and trees that we lose and that have to be replaced, and how that's managed. So just want to throw that out there. And then the other question I have, we're also going to be looking at the Swingle tree contract, which is next, and both of them seem to incorporate pruning and maintenance of shrubs and trees, and I didn't know how what CoCal does differs from what Swingle does.
Martin, yeah, I'm going to have Martin answer that.
Okay.
Martin Toth, town staff. The difference between the two contracts in terms of pruning is the 15-foot limit. Swingle tree has the ability to prune and trim and do work with trees that are above 15 feet high. CoCal is 15 feet below.
And who has the warranty responsibility? Is it by the same size? Or who has the warranty responsibility for the plants that die? Or is there a warranty?
Only if they're newly planted.
Right.
Yeah. And then the contractor or their subcontractor has the warranty.
And is the warranty, what period of time? One season or
2 years.
2 seasons? Okay. And what is our policy if something dies within 2, obviously, but what if for example, in the open space contiguous to my area, there has been a lot of loss, and it wasn't replanted for quite a period of time until we actually called in about it. What typically should happen in those instances?
The timeline typically is we receive reports of trees that have been damaged or there's been loss of trees or shrubs. We add those locations to essentially a master list, a GIS layer where all the trees are located around town. And then we work with the budget on an ongoing cycle to use an appropriation every year that's for tree enhancements and try to take care of the emergency ones if there's ever a hazard or any danger associated with one. Use some operating budget to address those in the immediate time frame, and if there's something that could be elective, it gets added to the queue and prioritized.
So does Swingle and CoCal put it in the queue? Do residents call in to put it in the queue, or is both of that happening?
Information, as you can imagine, comes from a lot of sources.
Okay.
Staff is responsible for collating and maintaining the list. We receive a lot of input from the folks who work for CoCal, who are out in the open space in the park areas around town. And then also residents, of course. All let us know when something's changed or if something's lost or broken.
Right. And are we keeping, is there any way we monitor particularly the expensive items? For example, the evergreens, the taller trees, et cetera, the replacement cost is quite high. Do we monitor for loss? How successful are we in keeping things alive?
I'd like to think that we're very successful. If you're looking for a statistic on loss ratio, I'd be glad to look into that and give you some follow-up information on that.
I'm just wondering if we do monitor that and keep a historical record of it so that we in fact do know if CoCal and Swingle are being effective in keeping things alive. So, that's a basis for comparison.
I would just say, I think, my personal observation, since we've started incorporating Swingle into our process, that we've seen a dramatic increase in the healthiness of our trees and the reduction of loss.
Okay.
And I'd echo that, too. I think that there was a period maybe 3 years ago, sort of in that time frame, we lost a whole bunch of evergreen trees, which is what precipitated actually coming in and have a tree expert to come on board to see if we could save some of those. And fortunately, I think that we've saved a lot of them, although we continue to see evergreen loss. But and I don't have any statistics to prove this, but it's my general observation that things are going much better recently.
And a lot of that would be part and parcel from the contract that Swingle's been able to execute on part of the town to include fertilization cycles and also the treatments to prevent loss.
And just for my own edification, are these 4-year contracts or 1-year contracts?
They're 1 year with renewable. Yeah,
Okay.
and we bring them back each year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's...
Usually, typically, varies year by year, but there's either some kind of change in pricing for the contract, so we bring it back for renewal.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions.
Board comments or questions? Public comment or questions regarding this? I just have to say, well, yes, please, if there's somebody here that represents the company. Let me just say a few comments. Is that I've been extraordinarily happy with the service that's been provided by CoCal, actually Swingle too, but they seem to do a fantastic job and do it at a rate that I don't think anybody has been able to come close in the RFP process. So I've been personally very happy with them. So that being said,
Thank you, Mayor Muckle. Jody Bost, CoCal Landscape. I would like to address your question regarding the annual color. And we, at CoCal, it's our responsibility to be good stewards for the town of Superior and to enhance the partnership that we have with the town. And we have decreased the number of annual color beds significantly since 2005, and the total has gone from 119 to 81, and we are evaluating changing more of the annual color beds to perennial color beds, and still allowing high-profile areas to have that beautiful color that the community is used to. So that's one of the things that we are looking at, and Alan and I have started working on that project for 2011.
If I could ask you, one, I loved that idea. It's been brought up several times, so I'm pretty excited that you're investigating it. Are you also investigating the concept of xeriscape, or is, in your opinion, where does that fit in with perennials?
These are xeric perennial beds
Okay,
that we're
great.
considering.
Okay.
And we'll
excellent.
have a palette of xeric plants that will be under consideration.
Great, thank you.
great.
Anything else?
Thanks. Additional public comments?
Gladys, 4244 South Third Avenue. Something that has been an extreme concern to me, and I know that has killed some of the trees, is the pesticides that is used by CoCal. Living next to Children's Park, why every year they are out there spraying around the trees so they don't have to trim. Well, and you wonder why your trees die? The roots come up from the trees because some of them have been there several years. So these pesticides are going to kill the trees. I mean, that should not take a college degree to understand that, why you're losing some of your trees.
Additional public comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Lisa, you ready to do that?
Anybody?
B or C first?
B.
Thanks. I'd like to move resolution number R-76, Series 2010, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with Cocal Landscape Services, Inc. for landscape and snow plowing services.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, is there a second? Trustee Pennington, further discussion? Seeing none, Phyllis?
Cirilli?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Skumatz?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That item carries, well, let's see, so that brings us to 7C.
I've already
She did it both.
discussed
Okay.
what I had in mind there.
Then I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to move Town of Superior Resolution Number R-77, Series 2010, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement for services with Swingle Lawn, Tree, and Landscape Care for tree care services.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, is there a second? Trustee Pennington, further discussion? Phyllis?
Skumatz?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Cirilli?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to item number 8, which is a preliminary reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 16 of the Superior Municipal Code. Mr. Magley?
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the packet for the board's review was an updated black line copy of the Chapter 16, also known as the Land Use Code. Happy we're finally at this point, considering the number of hours everybody has put into updating this lengthy chapter. Started back in late 2008 as part of the board's overall update of the Superior Municipal Code. Currently in its form, it's 280 pages, and last was updated, I think, in the mid-90s, maybe late 90s, so well overdue. Planning Commission began their process in early 2009 and completed it after numerous meetings in May of this year with a recommendation to the town board of 7-1 to approve the revised land use code. The board had 2 work sessions, one on August 30th and the other one on September 30th, where they reviewed the proposed revised land use code. And I have summarized, along with our town attorney and Fred Fox, our consulting town planner, who's here also, a list of items that the staff has updated based on the 2 work sessions, and happy to go through those with the board. I was thinking an article-by-article process on the list, or however the board would like to proceed. We have another final second reading on December 13th, which will also be a public hearing.
Why don't we do this? So we'll have some questions. One, I want to thank staff for all their hard work, and to the board and the Planning Commission. It's somewhat mind-numbing after a while, but it's nice that we got here. Perhaps instead of going over all the details in your report, can you hit the highlights of the article changes?
Sure, definitely. Let's see. One of the major items in Article 1, which was general provisions, which is basically the definitions, was the reinsertion of major public improvements definition, which clarified that it was only for new capital improvement projects. In Article 2, the major or significant revision there was the elimination of the call-up provision for each development application that comes forward. The call-up provision was removed, and inserted was a review and comment at the Planning Commission level and a decision at the town board level for most items. Also, for major public improvement in that development review chart, the Planning Commission level was added back in as review and comment. In Section 16260, which is Article 2, the distance to notified property owners was increased to 1,000 feet, or a minimum of 50 houses. In Article 6, the proposed code, under the schedule of requirements, the maximum height for detached garages in residential zones was changed back to 2 stories at 32 feet. This is,
Can you remind me what?
the Planning Commission had a lengthy discussion about that item, and they suggested that that be increased to their recommendation was, let me go back and look real quick. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to give you the size. So, here it is. Oh, wait, so this, looking at the wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't remember either. And I couldn't find it.
Oh, why don't, since it's coming back
Yeah.
as opposed to...
Yeah, we'll just do that next week.
So, yeah, I'll clarify that.
Okay.
But it was an increase from the 32 feet, which, this is what currently is in the code, is 2 stories or 32 feet, and the Planning Commission was proposing to increase that.
Okay.
So I'll include that on the December 13th meeting. Let's see, under Article 6, the maximum number of persons to be, that are allowed employed for a home occupation was increased from 1 to 2. Under, let's see here. Under Article 8, we have the major public improvements item again that was updated to clarify the Planning Commission's review and comment. And then under Article 9, which is the sign section of the code, we updated requirements for signs on residential lots, as well as language with regard to wall signs, signs that are allowed per face for electronic signs. That was increased. We decreased the number of signs allowed on non-residential properties from 5 to 4. We deleted some outdated language within the design standards for signs that was no longer needed. The big question for sign section under Article 9 is whether the board wants to allow signs in public rights of way. We did a survey of surrounding municipalities, and we couldn't find one that allows temporary signs in the right way. We clarified language in Article 20. Signs is 19, I'm sorry, I kept saying 9. It's 19. Article 20, we clarified language with regard to the minimum setback distance between differing uses. It's 300 feet, but it wasn't clear if that's from building to building or lot to lot, so we clarified that language for that section. Let's see, and then under section 24, parking and loading, we provided some information to the board with regard to current Costco and Target parking ratios, which is 5 per 1,000 feet 34 area. We didn't make any changes to that section, but we provided that information just in case the board was interested. And then in the Article 29, which is mobile homes, the minimum percentage devoted to space for common facilities in a mobile home park was increased from 20 to 30%. And then in Article 34, areas of activities of statewide significance, there was a question from the board whether this section was legally necessary, and it was determined that it is, so we left it in there. And then the current Article 29, which is on floodways and floodplains, was deleted in its entirety.
All right, thanks. Questions from the board? Trustee Skomatz?
I just had a couple minor questions.
Uh-huh.
Under the Article 2, number 3, what's the last part of that sentence?
Yes, sorry.
That's
I
right.
noticed that this afternoon. That should read, language was added regarding maximum height allowed per an approved development plan. So it's 10%, and then we added language per an approved development plan to that for clarification.
And under 6, the first one, 10-foot total, is that what it is now? It seems really close, but perhaps it's not.
Yes, 10 feet, yeah, that's correct.
Okey-doke.
That's what it currently is, yeah.
Seems close. You answered one other point. I guess, do you want us to weigh in then on 19, number 8?
Yes.
I know it's unusual. I know that the Boulder County Commissioners commented on it to me when they came for our dinner, but I actually don't have a problem with that. I think it's sort of public information and all that.
Yeah, the signs that are allowed in the right-of-way are small enough that, but during election season, that's when you start to see so many.
For a month.
Yeah.
Month every, I don't know, 2 years or something.
Well, now it's going to be, there used to be an election cycle every year, basically, because there was April and November, and they'd alternate. So with our change in the election cycle now, it at least it's gone to every other year, so.
Yeah. And we do get our number of calls every election season of residents or people in the public that don't agree with allowing them and like to let us know. But
Well, let's,
people are pretty
let
good
us
about
have-
taking them down after the election.
Yeah. There's a few things that, we can weigh in tonight, but there's not enough of the board here really to have, I think, a robust discussion regarding that. So just when it comes back, I assume that we'll have that unless people
There
feel strongly
are a
about
couple
this
of
right
things,
now.
however, on signs that I thought were sort of important enough to bring up.
Sure.
Do you mind if I do?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the right-of-way, I have to find the table here that talks about the right-of-way.
Which page are you?
I'm on page, if I've got the correct page, let me just get the correct one. Go to 104, let's see if that's correct. Now, somewhere we increased the sign size in right-of-ways from 3 square feet to 4 square feet, and I felt that was going in the wrong direction. But I'm trying to find a table that says that, so maybe
I
you
saw
can help
that,
me on
and I thought it was because that was sort of the standard.
It isn't the standard. The standard election sign is 1.5 by 2, so that's 3 square feet. So if we change it up it to 4, we can actually have larger signs in the right-of-way, which I did not think was the intent.
In the right-of-way, let's see. Yeah, that is correct.
What page are you on?
114.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 16, 19, 170, item 3, A3.
Yep.
So I would ask us to reconsider that.
So why did we do that, Judge?
I don't know.
Yeah, we discussed that internally, and I think when we made this change, we thought that the standard sign was...
That's what I thought the discussion was.
Here's where I think we got into that dilemma, is if you go back to table on 104, where we actually modified down the maximum area per sign, see how often we modified from 6 down to 4?
And that's on residential lots.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And because we were talking about how oversized those were, so I got a feeling that maybe when it came to this table, you sort of had 4 on the brain, and thought that that's what we had discussed in terms of the right-of-way. I don't know if that maybe led to that.
No, I think,
Okay.
The way I remember it is we were specifically talking about, maybe it was just internally with staff, but I remember having a conversation about temporary signs in the public right-of-way and the size
Okay.
not being a standard format, but
Yeah.
we can double-check
Yeah.
that.
I'm personally happy to keep them small.
Yeah. I think in the right-of-way, they shouldn't be...
eliminate them.
They have been readable.
They shouldn't be any larger than, they worked at 3 square feet. I don't see any reason to go to 4. If I could go to item 4A and 4B in that same area, I didn't feel it read well. The sign is not within 50 feet of a street intersection when the top of the sign is not located more than 3.5 feet above the ground. I would say when the top of the sign is more than 3.5 feet above the ground, and get rid of the not located there.
Are you on 114 right now? I just want to
On
check.
page 114, A, 170, A, 4A.
Okay.
So that
When the top of the sign is...
when the top of the sign is more than 3.5 feet above the ground. So you have to have them beyond 50 feet. And then on B, within 50 feet, when the top of the sign is not more than 2.5 feet above the ground.
When the top of the sign is not more than...
Right. Okay. And then we want to just make sure that if something's at 3 feet, which is somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5, that we're covered, that we're clear as to what prevails at that point. Do we have a gap there? Because we now say more than 3.5 feet and not more than 2.5, so we've got a 1-foot difference that we're not dealing with. But again, just take it under, and get back with us next week. Yeah,
I'll talk to Kendra about it and see how she
meant it to be.
feels about
Okay.
that
Okay,
Makes
so
for the 13th.
on the sign part, that's the last thing I have, but I have some more on other parts.
Okay, keep on going.
Okay, well, can we go way back to the definitions at the very beginning? The definition for best management practices specifically mentions only stormwater. Is that all BMP does, is address stormwater issues, or is it best management practices more broad?
Fred or anybody can correct me on this, but so I had that specific question, but obviously best management practices are a very broad definition throughout industries, and
Right.
they have different meanings in different situations, but I believe in the code it only is in an area that's discussed regarding stormwater drainage, and so
Okay.
that's why it's,
Okay.
so I believe I'm correct on that, but
I think the term BMP is used in that language in the code.
So it's never used anywhere to refer to anything other than stormwater?
I didn't see it anyplace else.
Okay, good. And then if we can look at the height definition, we messed around a lot with this one.
Page?
14, height. And I just feel we've made it too imprecise now. it says height means a standard of measurement defining the vertical elevation of a structure from grade to the top or highest point. It used to have a few more adjectives around the word grade, and I want to make sure that grade in and of itself is explicit enough not to cause us any problems.
Like lowest grade or highest grade or median grade?
It used to say average.
Fred
Yeah,
Fox.
you used to say average span.
I was just going to
that's
say,
what the grade
Fred
is.
Fox, town planning consultant, the grade is defined under the Gs. So that's specific. The word
Oh, I
grade
see.
is defined. So in other words, I mean, that's a key word, so that is also defined, the word grade.
Okay, that's good.
Now, if that confuses
Ah.
things, then we need to work on it, but if it's
Okay.
clearer, then it's better.
Yeah, and under the definition of grade, just for the public, it does say the average of the ground levels, so that's how we dealt with that. Good, thank you. It says we define lumberyard, and I must be blind because I could not find lumberyard.
Yes, that is meant, that was missed, so that will be inserted for the 13th.
Okay,
Ground level on that same page there, too?
Oh, no, wait, you know what? My memo is wrong.
We're not
I was
defining
going to
lumberyard.
insert lumberyard, and then after consulting with Kendra and Christine, they felt it wasn't necessary.
go
And on
ahead.
page 13, it says ground level means.
Oh, it doesn't finish it out.
Yep.
Okay. And then, as far as definitions, I've got, received a question from a resident who questions why we need to be defining domestic partnership in our code. What's the legal reason we include any attempt at trying to
Well, I think
identify
it's
domestic
to,
partnership?
It's because of our unrelated people living together
Uh-huh.
section of the code. So that was the main reason that was inserted into the code, to clarify in that instance.
To the extent we have other unrelated people living together, for example, an elderly person and a caregiver, that is not a domestic partnership as described here, but it is indeed a valid arrangement, correct? So where would that be dealt with?
So,
If it's a for-profit venture where somebody's, I think that's in a group home or something, it's a
Right, yeah.
definition. I mean, if it's just somebody volunteering to help out, then I'm not sure how that's related, how that would be addressed.
Right, if maybe you could give a little thought, maybe consult with Kendra, because this is pretty limiting, and I didn't think the intent was to be that limiting.
Well, doesn't our unrelated persons living together talk about a number of 4 or 6, it's not 2?
It's not two.
3. Yeah.
3?
Yep.
Which we've found to be very easy to enforce recently regarding Riverbend.
And Boulder has similar success, I think.
Right, on the hill.
Right, that's actually my reason for questioning it. Why even attempt?
It's,
Well, I don't know what the right number is, but I think there is a right number somewhere.
I think what,
We've had
we
complaints.
had this discussion, I don't remember, this particular issue was addressed 4 or 5 years ago, and it was trying to prevent basically 25 college kids hanging out and sharing a house, which is detrimental. You know, I think most people think that that situation is detrimental to property values next door. I don't think many people want that. So it was basically an attempt to try to remedy that situation. But as we found, it's very difficult to enforce that. But I think that that's what the intent was. And the domestic partner was added during that time because I think it just said married. And we realized that there's more than,
Right.
one
Well,
situation.
I guess I would just ask, going into next meeting, if we could think about this more broadly and make sure we're covered where we feel we need to be covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 3 unrelated persons living together, that's in there for those extreme cases like you mentioned, to where we have it in the code, and we're, you know, if we have an instance like that, we can enforce it through not only that, but other means.
That's my last definition one. Does anybody else have a definition one?
Nope.
Okay, well, I have a few more.
Okay.
Are the Cub Scouts still awake? I'm on page 53, and 16,740 on protests. And we changed this, and I think I even am the one who brought it up, to change it from 2/3 of all members of the Board of Trustees to 5, and upon reading it today, I thought, that only works if we have a full contingent here, having an explicit number rather than the fraction. So
Right.
I think we probably don't want to change it to 5, because we can vote on a protest, can't we, with a person or two missing?
Yeah, I mean, depending on,
As long as we have a quorum, right?
well,
Yeah.
depending on how we want to proceed, and so that would be in that area right now.
Right.
So if you want to be able to vote and you don't have a quorum, or, I mean, you don't have a full board, then that would have to be addressed here.
Yeah, the 2/3 gives you more flexibility.
Right. And my problem is that what if you do have 5 members? This could be interpreted that all 5 have to agree.
Yep.
So it's added imprecision rather than, so I thought it should be
Back to 2/3.
probably back to 2/3. And then I'm over on page 93. And again, another suggestion from residents, and it's wherever this would apply. For one example, would be at the top of page 95, to insert the word mountable curb and gutter. Streets shall be constructed with mountable curb and gutter for wheelchair accessibility. But the suggestion was made to read through this entire section 17 to make sure that esse is addressed.
I think that if you wanted to address that specifically, then I think that we have separate road design standard, if I
Yeah.
remember this correctly.
So that's in the road design?
I
Yep.
haven't read it in a long time, but
Yeah.
that's, if you want to be precise about that, that's where that would be.
So if that can just be verified, and if that solves the problem, that's great.
And just in terms of, we always have to allow for wheelchair access in any of our, I mean, I think we've been, I'm not sure the town has had to retrofit a whole bunch, maybe a little bit, but at least at every intersection, you have to be able to have
Okay.
ADA accessibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's dealt with. Okay, those are they.
Okay?
Thank you.
Anybody else? I didn't have anything either. Public comment regarding this particular issue? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the preliminary reading. By trustee Pennington, thank you
Okay.
very much. Second by trustee Skumas, thank you very much. All in favor? Unanimous. So that's coming back to us at the next meeting, is that correct?
Is it
Trustee
too
Pennington?
late for me to ask for input from the public on a specific part of this? The thing on mobile homes that, Matt, you mentioned in your summary of revisions, policy discussion of whether or not to allow mobile homes and mobile home parks or allow them on individual lots. And I think there is some fairly strong opinion on this among some residents, and I would really suggest they be at the public hearing next meeting or be in contact with their trustees or somebody to
Since it's
make
a
sure they
public
know.
hearing, and I'll play Kendra at the moment, so it's good to contact board members, but really,
They have to appear.
technically, they need to give their opinion. I'm
At the public
missing
hearing.
the
So we have it.
the
on
accurate
record.
terminology, but
Yeah.
there's a record of that, so people are making a decision, so
Right.
if somebody contacts you regarding that issue, make sure that they come to the public hearing.
Okay.
Trustee Skumas?
And I have one question. On Article 24,
testimony.
The one about the parking, 5 per 1,000 square feet.
Right.
Just wondered if you could check, is that what's sort of standard nowadays? Is that decreasing these days, or?
I
It
think
seems to me
what you're
that's a lot.
Yeah, what you're starting to see. I mean, you still do see that in some developments, but you're seeing. Well, in some of the mixed-use developments, you're seeing shared parking. So where you have the retail users, primarily, office users, and they all. So the ratio is lower than that. But you still get. I mean, Costco's still going to want their. They just opened one in Sheridan, I think it was, and it's probably got 5 per 1,000.
Yeah.
It seems like there's an awful lot of parking
Yeah.
empty except for 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this is all going to, since the town of Superior, we don't have really a lot of straight zoning. I think essentially none except for an original town. So, I mean, everything's going to be negotiated within a PD anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And we look for opportunities where we can share that parking,
Okay.
so we can try to reduce the number of spaces.
Thanks.
Could be a very significant topic in the town center.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
it will be.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
exactly right.
Anything else to come before the board tonight? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Wow.
I know, that's
And
what I'm
usually
feeling
coming
like.
back.